All right, today we're talking about a racehorse who was so much more than just a champion. She was a true icon. You know, in a sport that's all about size and raw power, she came along and proved that really the only thing that matters is heart. This is the incredible story of Serena Song.
So what if one of the greatest racehorses was almost completely overlooked? I mean, she wasn't the biggest horse out there, definitely not the flashiest, but the second her hooves hit that track, everything changed. In a sport practically built for colts, this little bay mare made every single doubter eat their words.
And listen to this. Her own Hall of Fame trainer, the legendary D. Wayne Lukas, put it perfectly. He said she had the elegance of a Grace Kelly, the moves of a Ginger Rogers, and the charisma of a Marilyn Monroe. Wow. I mean, he didn't just see a horse, right? He saw a superstar, a total force of nature. This quote, it just perfectly sets the stage for everything that was to come.
But you know that star quality? It wasn't obvious from day one. Her journey starts way back, and it's a classic hero's story. Let's get into it.
So, she was born right in the heart of horse country, Kentucky, with a pretty solid pedigree. But the real moment, the turning point, was at the 1993 Keeneland yearling sale. That's where the legendary D. Wayne Lukas spotted her. He saw something special that maybe others didn't, and he bought her for Robert and Beverly Lewis. And get this, the price was $150,000. Looking back, that has to be one of the biggest bargains in the history of horse racing.
And yeah, that bargain purchase started paying dividends almost immediately. Her 2-year-old season, that's when she went from being just a promising young horse to an absolute force of nature.
But it didn't happen overnight. She didn't just explode onto the scene. Her very first race was, well, it was a pretty forgettable 5th-place finish. You know, the kind of start that makes people start to wonder. But her trainer, D. Wayne Lukas, he kept the faith. He trusted what he saw in her, way beyond just that one single race.
And man, was he right to trust his gut. Just 2 races later, she didn't just win, she made a statement, a huge one. She absolutely demolished the field, winning by a jaw-dropping 10 lengths. It was like, bam! The quiet filly had found her voice, and everyone was listening. From that moment on, she was just on another level, sweeping major Grade 1 races. But her incredible season all came down to this one dramatic showdown at the Breeders' Cup. She was up against another undefeated superstar, Flanders. And the finish? It couldn't have been closer. She lost by a single head. A single head! Just a split second separated her from a completely perfect, undefeated season.
You know, a loss like that could break a horse. But for her, that near miss just added fuel to the fire. What came next? Her 3-year-old season in 1995? It wasn't just a good year. It was the year she completely took over. She owned the sport.
And right away, she did something almost unthinkable. She marched into a major Kentucky Derby prep race, the Jim Beam Stakes, and she won. Now, this wasn't just another win. This was a race against the boys. She was challenging the whole hierarchy of the sport, this idea that the colts are always stronger, always faster. She wasn't just competing with them, she was flat out beating them. Now, she had a rare off day in the Kentucky Derby itself, but did she let that get to her? No way. She came roaring right back in the Black-Eyed Susan and just put on a clinic. She won by 9 commanding lengths. It just proved that her resilience, her toughness was every bit as scary as her speed. But nothing, and I mean nothing, defined her year like the Haskell Invitational. You have to understand, this was a race for the colts. A massive, high-stakes battle that was always fought and won by the best male horses in the country.
And in the entire history of the race, a filly had never won it. Not once. The odds, history, tradition, everything was stacked against her.
But you know, Serena Song, she had other ideas. She couldn't care less about history. She stepped onto that track and made her own, becoming the first and only filly to ever win the Haskell. It wasn't just a win. It was a revolution. She shattered a glass ceiling right there on the racetrack.
So after a season like that, a lot of champions would start to fade, but not Serena Song. She just kept going. Her 4-year-old year was an absolute masterclass in what makes a legend: consistency.
Just think about this. As a 4-year-old, she raced 15 times. 15! And she never once, not a single time, finished worse than 3rd. 15 grueling races against the best of the best, and every single time she was right there. That is just toughness personified.
And her final career numbers? They just speak for themselves. 38 starts,
18 wins, and career earnings of over $3.2 million. At the time she retired, that made her the highest-earning filly or mare in the entire history of North American racing. Just incredible.
So with a record like that, there was really only one place left for her to go: the National Museum of Racing and Hall of Fame.
And of course, she got in on the very first ballot in 2002. There was no debate, no waiting. It was just instant, unanimous recognition. Everyone knew she was one of the all-time greats.
But her story doesn't even end there. Her racing chapter closed, but her final chapter was maybe her most peaceful, as she became the beloved Queen of Denali.
As a mom, she proved her greatness was literally in her DNA. She had 12 foals, and 9 of them were winners. One of them, a filly named Sophisticat, even went on to win a huge Group 1 race over in England at Royal Ascot. And her legacy kept going for generations, her bloodline eventually producing another champion horse, Honor Code.
She spent 30 amazing years at Denali Stud, the farm that became her home. They called her the Queen of Denali, and she lived out her days there with such grace, passing away peacefully at the incredible age of 34.
And this quote from Craig Banderoff, the man who cared for her for all those decades, it just says everything. Some things can't be replaced. You just have to be thankful they came your way. You can feel it, right? She wasn't just a horse to them. She was family, a true once-in-a-lifetime gift.
And that leaves us with this one last thought. We can measure speed. We can count wins and earnings. But her story really asks us to think about something deeper. How much of true greatness isn't in what we can see, but in that fierce, unbreakable heart that we can't?